Such a bad husband. Doing this on your wedding day. Well, this is the best way to relax when you're nervous, isn't it? On the wedding day, I glanced into the dressing room and there were Evan and Sarah, entwined without a stitch on. What a pain, this happily ever after wedding show-off of Emily's. That's cruel. What's the main attraction saying? I'm not the main attraction. It's funny though, Emily doesn't look the part of the star either, does she? No matter how much she dresses up, a plain Jane is just a plain Jane. She's just making a spectacle of herself. I was the only one who was swept up in the wedding fever. Until just now, my heart had been racing, but it suddenly calmed down. Sarah looks more fitting in her current indecent form than any white dress. They've insulted me plenty, so why not make them today's main attraction? My name is Emily Smith, and I'm 32 years old. I met him at a social gathering, and after a year, he finally proposed. Not in some fancy restaurant with a sparkling diamond ring, but in our usual pub. His name is Evan. We are both straightforward people. Let's keep this going, we toasted with beers. Even though he proposed, we didn't get married right away. He respected my wish for a modest wedding, so we planned it for a year later. Touring various wedding venues and bridal fairs was a fresh and fun experience. Being called groom and bride made us blush and smile at each other. I had heard about it, but I never realized you can't just rush into a wedding right after deciding to have one. Yeah, I thought a year later was way too far out, but it's actually okay. Right? And the cost we thought was a joke turned out to be real. There's a reason the wedding is set for a year later. Here's this month's share. Thank you. Got it, thanks. I handed over $1,500 to Evan. He quickly counted the bills and pocketed the money. This is for our wedding in a year. We each contribute $1,500 every month, and by the end of the year, we should have saved up around $40,000. Evan's in charge of managing it. $1,500 a month is a lot, but we can do it because we both live with our parents. By the way, which venue looks good to you? I guess your mom's place is nice, right? Actually, my mother works at a wedding venue. I was worried Evan would feel awkward at my mom's workplace, but he was the one who insisted on it. The venue was really nice, and it's a big help that they'll give us the family discount. Evan's practical like that. This is how our wedding preparations went smoothly. We've already met each other's parents. We wanted to discuss things before meeting at the venue, so we started visiting each other's homes more often. It could have been in a cafe, but Evan's mom treats me like family. She says, come over anytime, so I've been hanging out at my in-laws' place. Wow, they have a dessert buffet these days? How can I eat a lot in a tight dress? Oh, Mom, it's a wedding. It would be weird if the groom's mother is just chowing down. That's true, what a shame. We always had such light-hearted discussions. But then Sarah showed up and the atmosphere changed completely. No way. Evan's getting married for real? That's hilarious. As usual, I was visiting my in-laws when she barged in. Without introducing herself, she pointed at me and laughed. Is this who you're marrying? Well, I guess that's about right for Evan. She's a young and cute girl with soft curls and glossy lips. In contrast, I was in a hoodie and barely any makeup since I wasn't going anywhere. Her words made me angry, but I wasn't dressed to talk back with confidence. It was frustrating, but I bit my lip and looked to Evan for help. Evan scratched his head, looking a bit embarrassed. Come on, Sarah, that's rude. Then Evan introduced her. She's his cousin, apparently. Sarah is 5 years younger than Evan but acts way more superior. Evan's over 30, can't be picky anymore, huh? So this is the kind of person that's realistic for him. Evan just laughed it off. My in-laws scolded Sarah for her rudeness. I was smiling on the outside, wondering if we really had to invite this rude girl to the wedding, but I was annoyed inside. Sarah had just arrived, but my mother-in-law suggested Evan drive her home. Sarah left the house looking displeased. After Evan and Sarah left, my in-laws apologized. Emily, we're so sorry. Sarah doesn't think before she speaks. She's always treated Evan like a little follower since they were kids. Maybe she's upset you're taking him away. A cute little girl's follower, huh? Is that why he couldn't stand up for me? Because he can't go against the boss? Ridiculous for adults. I'm not bothered at all. I replied cheerfully, trying not to let my in-laws sense my true feelings. The next weekend, there was a big problem during our meeting at the venue. Sorry I'm late. Who was it again? Oh right, Emily. You blend in too much, I had to look for you. Sarah had followed Evan to our meeting place. After all, I have way better taste than Emily. If it's a wedding, you gotta go big or go home. Leaving a confused me behind, the two of them huddled close together. Sarah had taken it for granted to join the wedding planning. Hey Evan, don't you think these flowers are nice? Yeah, that's nice. Evan was flanked by two women. One was chirping away with suggestions, clearly enjoying herself, yet she was an outsider. And there I was, the actual bride-to-be, wearing a gloomy expression. It felt like a bizarre scene. The wedding planner, with a vague smile, nodded along to Sarah, trying to include me by saying, "The bride thinks," but was drowned out by Sarah's excited voice. After a while, Sarah glanced back and forth between me and the planner, letting out a chuckle. Hey, we're not planning a funeral here. It's seriously killing the vibe that this spot is so gloomy. If you're not into it, Emily, maybe you should just head home? Right now, I must be sporting the most idiotic look imaginable. I can't close my gaping mouth. Sarah's behavior is so incomprehensible to me, she's starting to seem like an alien. It was Emily who wanted to have a wedding. But to then just dump all the decisions on Sarah is just not cool. You just wanted to dress up and have everybody make a fuss over you, didn't you? Evan was an alien too. Even though he seemed so normal up until a moment ago, I can't wrap my head around this. It's cool. I love organizing events. I often do barbecues and Christmas parties with friends. Leave the wedding planning to me. You're awesome, Sarah. I'm counting on you. Yeah, I guess. At this rate, my wedding will become Sarah's thing. I want to scream no, I hate this, but no voice comes out. The more I panic, the more my throat constricts. Evan and Sarah are laughing hysterically. Evan. Just then, a voice came from behind. It was slow and polite, not loud but carried well. The laughter from Evan and Sarah stopped. When I turned around, my mother was there. Evan, who is this woman? She seems rather like the bride. Evan quickly distanced himself from Sarah. In a contrived manner, he twined his arm around mine and turned a smile to my mother. I apologize, but you're causing a disturbance for the other couples here, so could you please keep it down a bit? Ah, yes, sorry. Thank you. Then, your companion should be leaving, right? Eh? Oh, yes. My mother was smiling sweetly, yet there was a strong pressure about her. She forcefully sent Sarah home. That evening, my mother was shaking her head in disbelief, worried about us. Evan seemed like such a serious guy, right? Bringing a woman who looks like a mistress to the wedding planning, what's gotten into him? Evan is Sarah's underling. Underling? After I explained that Sarah was my cousin and the dynamics between them, my mother just shrugged. What's that about? We're not in grade school. My mother, who's been involved in many weddings, says that troubles often lurk behind the seemingly happy wedding ceremonies. Of course, the stars of a wedding are the bride and groom, but often parents and others interject and try to shape the wedding to their own liking. I don't care if she's a cousin or a boss, the wedding is for Emily and Evan. Since then, Sarah stopped showing up. Thankfully, the planning proceeded smoothly, but Evan seemed bored. He would only respond with, "I think it's fine," to anything asked. Eventually, even his tuxedo was left up to me with a careless "do whatever you like." Not just in the planning, but generally, he's been pretty indifferent towards me. Maybe the reality of marriage is bringing up all sorts of anxieties. We're probably both experiencing cold feet. I remember my mother once said, many couples fight before the wedding. It's understandable since it's a big change. We're supposed to overcome these little bumps and grow as a couple. After several arguments and makeups, a year flew by in no time. It's finally the day of the wedding. Man, I'm nervous. Evan can't seem to sit still, pacing from one end of the bridal suite to the other. The speech we practiced is ready to go. No matter how many times I reassure him with "it's gonna be okay," Evan is still restless. We exchange wry smiles when, without a knock, the door swings open. Hey, where's the bride and groom? My face froze in an instant. It was Sarah. There you are. Haven't you two done your makeup or gotten dressed yet? You're so plain I didn't even notice. Laughing, Sarah was in a stark white dress. And a mini skirt above the knee at that, bare-legged. Such an outfit would seem adorable to a child about 3 years old, but it's preposterous for an adult. She said she came early to get her hair set at the venue. But still, it was too early. I couldn't help but suspect she was here to mock us. Hey, isn't my dress cute? I might even be mistaken for the bride. I didn't want any unpleasantness on this special day. I forced a dry laugh. Soon it was time for my makeup to begin. Ushered by the staff, Sarah left the dressing room. I sat down in front of a large mirror, relieved. But I couldn't see Evan anywhere during the makeup. He must have been nervous and walking around in the lobby, so I went to look for him after finishing. Since it wasn't time for the guests to arrive, only the staff were in the lobby. So then, the garden, the restroom. As I pondered and walked down the hall, I stopped in front of the relatives' room. The bride and groom's room is a bright and all-white space. It's luxurious, with a bed and a bathroom even, in the back of the makeup room. We aren't going to stay overnight, when would we even use this? Evan and I had laughed about it. On the other hand, the relatives' room had a more subdued brown palette. I became curious about that relative's room and quietly opened the door. First, I saw the counter where drinks for hospitality would soon be arranged. It was a 2-room suite, with comfy sofas lined up in the room beyond. Evan had said during our venue tour, "I like the relative's room better than the bride and groom's. You can totally crash on those big sofas." As expected, there was a noise coming from the back. But something was off. It sounded like the faint meowing of a cat. And the sofa was creaking unnaturally. My heart was pounding as if it would break. From beyond the thin wall, I heard Sarah's voice. "Such a bad husband. Doing this on your wedding day." I didn't need to see to understand what nasty thing Sarah was up to from the sounds alone. But the other should be someone I don't know. I hoped. But this is the best way to relax before the big moment, isn't it? That was unmistakably Evan's voice. I collapsed on the spot, limp. In a daze, I peeked into the next room. No mistake about it. Evan and Sarah were entwined, naked. Evan, burying his face in Sarah's chest, cooed for one more time. "Are you sure we have time? Is the groom supposed to be doing this?" "It's fine. My prep will take just 10 minutes. Man, I'm so over this Emily's show-off happy wedding." That's terrible. The star of the show's saying that? I'm not the star. It's funny though, Emily doesn't look the part of the star either, does she? No matter how much she dresses up, a plain Jane is just a plain Jane. She's just making a spectacle of herself. Was I the only one excited about the wedding? Suddenly my heart went quiet. Once I calmed down, hatred bubbled up within me for the two of them, entangled with not a stitch on. Sarah suited this scandalous look far more than any white dress. They had spent all this time mocking me, I'd make them the main event of today. After a while, when I stepped out of the dressing room, my mother, with a pale face, rushed over. "I will never forgive this." When I said this firmly, my mother nodded solidly. 20 minutes later. "Huh? Why?" Evan is trying to forcefully open the door to the family waiting room. But it shouldn't open. I borrowed the key from my mother and locked him in. I even rigged a door jamb. "Hey, is anybody there?" It won't open. Evan is banging on the door, calling for help. He's blissfully unaware of what's happening outside. What are you doing there? I asked. Emily, is that you? The door won't open. Can you open it from the outside? Do you want me to open it? Huh? Of course I do. Hurry up. He seems a bit irritated. I unlocked the door from the outside for him. As soon as Evan came out of the dressing room, he grabbed my shoulder. Why didn't you open it right away? Evan stopped his motion abruptly. And no wonder, behind me were all my relatives, Evan's relatives, and even the wedding venue staff. What's the matter? Sarah, popping her head out, seemed to have sensed the tense atmosphere. She tried to pass it off with a thin smile. What's going on, everyone? I was just taking a little tour of the wedding venue and it seems I got locked in. I was really in a bind. She started making excuses without anyone asking. Evan's relatives opened their mouths with a look of dissatisfaction. We got a call from the venue saying something serious had happened and to come quickly. Is it just that Evan and Sarah were locked in? What a stupid prank. We rushed over here for this nonsense? The other relatives showed concern with comments like, "Is Sarah okay?" To the relatives gathered without an explanation, it seemed as though I was making a big fuss over nothing. That's when I confessed the real reason. The truth is, Evan and Sarah were, just until a moment ago, cheating in this room. What? Evan, Sarah, and the relatives all had their eyes wide open. Evan first tried to grab me by the collar, but then, seemingly conscious of the people around, he awkwardly put his arm around my shoulder. What are you talking about? You're mistaken. Were you dreaming or something? His mouth is smiling, but his eyes are pressing me to shut up. It was like being glared at by a snake, and it was scary, but I continued expressionlessly. It's not a mistake. I saw it. That's why I locked the two of them in this room. Emily, don't tell lies. Evan's forced smile was strained. Seeing this, Sarah tried to throw him a lifeline. Emily, please stop this. Look, everyone. Emily gets really jealous. She's mad because Evan and I are close. One time, I was kindly helping with the wedding preparations, and she sent me away. She's just a cousin, but it's weird to be jealous, right? Essentially, she just hates cute little me. But to tell such a lie, that's the worst. Unlike Evan, Sarah's calm explanation had the relatives nodding. They began whispering to each other while looking my way. They're probably bad-mouthing me. Evan's parents tried to calm the situation, but no one was willing to listen. A groom cheating at the wedding venue on the day of the wedding is not something you normally hear of. Therefore, it was more plausible that it was a bride's ugly jealousy leading to slander. Evan's relatives pierced me with their glares like needles. Evan, who had been nervous, gained confidence. Look, Emily, apologize to everyone for the trouble caused by your lying. And then my mom stepped forward and apologized. I apologize for calling you all here earlier than scheduled. I stood beside my mother. But I'm not going to apologize as Evan wants. Ladies and gentlemen, thank you for joining us on our special day. As a small token of our apology for the rush, we've prepared a special entertainment for you. With a cue, the staff began guiding all the relatives to the banquet hall. Evan and Sarah followed behind the relatives, confused. In the hall, a giant screen was lowered. Please, take a look. In the dimly lit hall, a sultry voice suddenly filled the air. At the same moment, the intimate scenes of Evan and Sarah were projected on the giant screen. Screams erupted from all around. Sarah stood in front of the screen yelling, "Stop it. Turn it off." The scandalous affair was exposed for only a few seconds, but it made for the most exciting entertainment. Now, I wonder who's lying. I ask in the silent hall. Sarah, do you intend to be the bride in that pure white dress? If you're saying that it's not my day to be the center of attention, then surely it must be yours, right? Look, everyone's watching. The stars today are you, Sarah, and Evan. I started clapping, but the crowd remained frozen. Evan, with his face red as a beet, grabbed my collar without hesitation. You! Don't mess with me! The one messing around is Evan. I snapped back, and his grip loosened. As expected from a cute girl's sidekick. He can't stand up to the strong. Such a weak guy. I took a breath and asked gently. Let me ask you again. What were you and Sarah doing in the dressing room? Evan clenched his back teeth. This secret filming, why? Of course, there wasn't a hidden camera at the venue. The answer was simple. I just filmed the dressing room with my smartphone. Huh? And I sent it to my mom. Mom shook her smartphone to show it. If I confronted them alone about the affair, I'd likely be fooled by the bold Sarah. So, I secretly filmed their little rendezvous and sent it to my mom right away. My mom was quick to act. Having worked at the venue for many years, Mom had moved up from planner to manager, and she was adept at coordinating the staff. She swiftly gave directions to lock down Evan and his group, gather the relatives, and even started preparing the video and screen. Neither my mom nor I wanted to make the video public. This was a last resort. In case Evan and the others refused to admit their guilt. You think you can film us secretly, expose us, and get away with it for free? Evan said, his eyes brimming with tears, trying to bluff his way out. Then his mother slapped his cheek. Stop this nonsense. I had actually sent the video to his parents as well. They probably never imagined they'd be shown their son's true colors on his big day, as he was about to leave the nest. I thought they might defend Evan. But instead, they said, let's gather the family and confront them in front of everyone. That was our cue to take action. Evan and Sarah are relatives. Because they are family, his in-laws wanted to avoid ambiguity and made a tough decision. My mom betrayed me. Evan staggered back fearfully, clutching his chest as if he was about to hyperventilate. You're the one who betrayed us, Evan. His mother yelled, tears streaming down her face. Evan's cries were loud and grating. Everyone frowned and looked down on him from afar. In the midst of this, the other main character, Sarah, was trying to sneak away from the crowd. Even amidst the commotion, she stood out too much in her pure white outfit. A middle-aged relative nearby caught her right away. Let me go, don't touch me. Sarah protested, looking down. The middle-aged man raised his voice in desperation. It's a lie that you were cheating with Evan, right? You love me, don't you? Then, another man, grasping the situation, shouted, you were messing around with someone else besides me? Sarah, head still bowed, gave no reply. It seems Sarah wasn't just involved with Evan. It's unbelievable that she was involved with 3 relatives, all so close to her. Evan stopped crying and yelled at the men. I'm special. I gave her like $1,500 every month. Sarah's head spun, and she collapsed. Evan had just spilled the beans on something he shouldn't have. Following that, the other 2 men also confessed to giving Sarah money. In the end, it was all about the money for Sarah. The men who had been rivals for Sarah's affection suddenly teamed up. You said you only loved me, but you lied. Now, Sarah's enemies were Evan and the others. Surrounded by the encroaching men, Sarah trembled violently. Help me! Then, unbelievably, Sarah's eyes met mine. With everyone in the family looking at her with disgust, it seemed she couldn't even rely on her own parents in such a situation. She probably couldn't even bear to look her parents in the face. The attention-seeking Sarah. Everyone's looking at you now. Aren't you pleased? Sarah's face turned pale, and she rolled her eyes back, losing consciousness. Evan grabbed her arm and yelled. Hey Sarah. We're not done talking. You cheater. I tapped Evan on the shoulder from behind. You're not done talking to me, Mr. Cheater. I said with a sneer. Could this be a skit of some sort, I wondered? Evan is completely oblivious to the mess he's in. The color drained from his face as the reality of his situation hit him. No, you got it all wrong. It's not cheating. I don't love Sarah. It's you, Emily, that I love. It's like I was just visiting a professional, you know? I was just paying Sarah, that's all. I put on my best smile and nodded, playing along. Evan, slightly relieved, began to relax his guard. Right. You were buying Sarah's time with my money. He looked up to the sky, still smiling faintly. When he mentioned transferring $1,500 to Sarah each month, it clicked. That was exactly the amount I had been giving him for our wedding savings. How could I forgive him for funneling our future happiness into his selfish desires? Please, forgive me. Evan looked at me with tearful eyes. Repulsive. I had the urge to stomp on his head but restrained myself. I didn't want to get my shoes dirty. In the end, we called off the wedding. Thankfully, we had mostly just invited relatives, so after the debacle, we sent them home. Breaking off the engagement with Evan was, of course, the only option. Thankfully, it was before we had legally tied the knot. About this. Even though I wanted nothing more to do with Evan, he came to me holding something. We still have to pay for the wedding, even though it's cancelled. This is like highway robbery. Can you talk to your mother about it? He presented a bill for around $40,000. Of course, we were liable for the full amount as it was the day of the wedding. We could just pay it from our joint savings. I offered generously. But that was mostly relatives' money, right? We were gonna come out ahead with the gifts. I didn't think we needed any savings. So you spent it on Sarah, I finished for him. To Sarah, Evan was normally not someone she'd consider dating. But with the wedding looming, she must have felt a sense of loss. It turned out she had seduced him. Are you sure you want to marry such a plain Jane? Looks like you're set for a dull life. If you had money, at least you could have some fun with cute girls like me, she had teased him. That's what got him to hand over that $1,500 he had on him. After that, their transactional relationship continued, both financially and physically. It's your fault the wedding was ruined, so you should pay this. I was about to retort angrily. But suddenly, Evan was out of sight. He had been floored by his father. Apparently, my in-laws had been suspicious of Evan and had followed him. It was you who broke it. His mother yelled what I had been feeling. My parents apologized profusely to me. Evan was dragged back home by my father-in-law. Later on, through a lawyer, I demanded compensation from both Evan and Sarah. The adorable Sana was apparently the idol of her relatives. Her parents doted on her as well. Even if their beloved daughter messed up, as long as money could solve the problem, her parents might have covered for her. But even they ran out of patience after the horrendous spectacle she displayed on the wedding day. Both of them had no savings, and they ended up borrowing money to pay me the compensation, as my in-laws informed me. Furthermore, both were kicked out of their parental homes. Evan, with no experience living alone, became stale and started to imagine everyone at work hated him, which led to his resignation, according to a mutual friend. And Sarah, hopping from friend's house to friend's house, was ostracized wherever she went for badmouthing me. Soon enough, she'd run out of places to go. Now that Evan and I were no longer engaged, they could be together openly, yet all they did was blame each other. They were suffering because of their own actions, not someone else's. Some time has passed since the incident, and I've been enjoying peaceful days. Ah, my life's over. I sighed, still saddened by the shattered dream of my perfect wedding. What are you talking about? My mom hit me on the back, snapping me out of it. In your 30s? You're still young. Life's over if you just mope around at home. But outside, there's a whole lot of new happiness waiting for you. Where could it be? Let me think, the peak of Mount Everest. Or perhaps the Sahara Desert. That's way too far. What? Come on, let's go together. My mom and I couldn't help but laugh. She's right, happiness must be out there somewhere. For starters, she's suggesting we hit the spa this weekend. Maybe she just wanted to take a trip with me? No matter where you go, no matter what mistakes you make, you always have a home to return to, Emily. She muttered softly and began to prepare for our spa trip right away. Always strong, always dependable, that's my mom. I realized I'm still protected by her. I haven't given up on the dream of marriage yet. I'll build a bright home and become a mom just like her.